And it looks like Gabby has already started the recording, so that's good. We'll go ahead and we'll begin. We may have some more participants join as we're going along here. Welcome everybody to the presentation today. My name is Ken Walls. I'm the director for the Center for Renewable Energy Advanced Technological Education, or CREATE. And we're really pleased to bring this webinar to you today on behalf of the Solar Ready Vets Network. And we have two distinguished speakers with us today, Megan Howes and Eric Filate, who will be presenting. Before I introduce our speakers, let me just say a few words about the presentation and sort of how we'll operate here. As participants enter the room, your microphones will automatically be muted, and we ask you to keep your microphones turned off until after the presentation. If you're having trouble with the connection, you may also wish to mute your video so that the connection just stays a little bit stronger. There is a chat window at the bottom of the screen, and if you open up the chat window, you're welcome to post questions in there as the presentation proceeds. I'll be monitoring that chat window, and will do my best to try and organize those questions and gather them together to ask our presenters after they've concluded with their remarks, so we can have some Q&A and discussion at the end. The slides and the recording for this webinar will be posted on the createenergy.org website, so you're welcome to view those afterwards. And we'd also encourage you to share the link to the webinar with colleagues that might be interested. Typically we have a relatively small viewer audience in real time, but the downloads that accumulate over time and online streaming views is pretty impressive to see how many folks tune in to view these asynchronously. So we're really happy to make that available. There will also be an audio transcript made available for folks that might need use of that as well. Let me real quickly introduce today's speakers. Megan Howes is a program manager at the Solar Foundation focused on workforce development. She currently coordinates the Solar Ready Vets Network, a U.S. Department of Energy funded initiative to advance opportunities for military talent to fill technical and leadership roles across the American solar workforce. This project builds on her previous work through the Solar Training Network Initiative, strengthen and diversify solar career pathways. So welcome, Megan. Our second speaker is Eric Filate. Eric is the project coordinator at NABSEP, the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners. Eric currently works alongside his project partners to complete various Department of Energy grant programs, all involving recruiting veterans into the solar photovoltaic workforce. Eric is working to expand the training and credentialing pathways offered through NABSEP's registered training providers to make it easier for veterans to earn certifications and become employed in solar. On behalf of CREATE, I welcome both of our speakers today. We've been really pleased to work with both the Solar Foundation and NABSEP over these many years, and we're excited to have each of you here today to present. So I will mute my microphone and turn off my video and hand it over to Megan and Eric. Take it away.
All right, thanks Ken for that introduction, and thanks to Gabby and the CREATE Network for hosting us. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for all of you for joining us. Like Ken said, I manage the Solar Ready Vets program. I previously coordinated the Solar Training Network, and so I'm going to spend some time today just on an overview of the Solar Foundation's role in the industry and some of our work in this space. And then I'll get into some challenges and solutions around solar training and workforce development and what we can expect to see over the next couple of years. Could we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so the Solar Foundation is an independent national nonprofit focused on research and education to advance solar energy. So we produce labor market research, and we lead several cross-functional programs to build industry capacity as solar emerges as a mainstream part of the American energy sector. So we support innovative and data-driven solutions to expand solar markets and inform policy so that communities can realize the transformative potential of an equitable and sustainable energy future. And this, of course, includes efforts to promote a highly qualified, resilient solar workforce that can meet evolving challenges at a really pivotal time for the energy industry. We're actually going to be merging with the Interstate Renewable Energy Council this year, and this will allow us to work together with much greater latitude and impact in this space. So we're pretty excited about that. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'd just like to take a minute to acknowledge that funding for this program comes from the US Department of Energy Solar Energy Technologies Office as part of a broader effort to reduce solar soft costs and increase diversity in the solar workforce and prepare the industry for a modern grid. Next slide. So the Solar Foundation's flagship project is the annual National Solar Job Census. And this work has documented the rapid expansion of solar jobs over the past decade to where we are now with about 250,000 Americans employed in the industry. So the census is a really comprehensive dive into the geographic and market trends across the solar jobs landscape, and it provides an extensive and impartial overview of where jobs are growing by industry sector and by state down to the level of congressional district in order to support informed decision-making at all levels. So just a few top-line numbers from the most recent census report. Solar has seen an average growth rate of about 49% over the past decade. And during this time, solar jobs have grown about 5 times faster than the overall US economy. Beyond the job numbers, the census examines industry trends to provide insight into the makeup of the American solar workforce, as well as this broader picture of solar training and hiring trends. And this work ultimately serves 2 purposes: to demonstrate the potential of solar as a local economic force, and it also allows us to identify and respond to challenges and gaps across the workforce as a whole. So next slide, please. Okay, so last year, solar was the #1 source of new electric generating capacity installed in the US, and the industry is positioned for really significant growth over the next decade. Some states like California have been ahead of the curve in driving that growth so far, but expansion of the industry is really happening in all 50 states and will continue to serve as a really valuable source of quality jobs. So these numbers here are from the report recently published by the Solar Energy Industry Association. Prior to the pandemic, the American solar workforce was on track to create nearly 50,000 jobs and invest about $25 billion into the US economy. So despite widespread disruptions due to the pandemic, the industry clocked in at about 40% growth over 2020. Which just goes to show how dynamic and resilient and essential solar has really become. Overall, the majority of solar jobs are concentrated in the installation sector, which includes like construction and electrical aspects of getting systems up and running. But there's also great demand for talent in technical sales, and opportunities are also expanding across project development, operations and maintenance, business development, policy, communications, like all of these roles that power the industry. So bottom line here is the industry is growing fast, and all across the country there's a need for talent at all levels of the solar workforce. There's a great need and a great opportunity for the industry to define like both short and long-term solutions to develop a skilled and stable workforce to keep pace with demand, and integrating solar training into the community college system and the public education system will continue to be a really important piece of this. Could we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so we look at where solar jobs are growing, but also who has these jobs. So our solar industry diversity study, which was first published in 2017, and then a second edition in 2019, was the first baseline analysis of representation across the solar workforce. And this report demonstrated that while the industry has certainly made progress, there's still plenty of room for improvement. So looking at a national scale, the average makeup of solar companies is still predominantly white and male, with women making up less than a third of the national solar workforce. And this research validates what has been kind of casually observed for a while, that women and people of color working in solar tend to face barriers to accessing equal pay and equal opportunities for advancement. That being said, like, many companies are recognizing these shortcomings and taking deliberate steps to close some of these gaps. And we really encourage companies to recognize the value of workforce diversity, not just as the right thing to do, but as a smart business strategy. Because inclusion of diverse backgrounds and perspectives fosters innovation, it leads to better decision making, and it really allows companies to recruit and promote and retain talent. And so because of that, we really try to expand opportunities and expand awareness to all different kinds of talent. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so the Solar Foundation has led a few projects over the past several years that advance solar training and hiring outcomes. Solar Ready Vets program has seen a few iterations since it was launched in 2014. This first model focused on training transitioning enlisted service members for installation jobs. And this curriculum was implemented at community colleges in partnership with 10 military bases across the country. And while this funding concluded in 2017, a few of these locations continue to operate independently and are now contributing to our current efforts. And then with additional funding from Department of Energy, we launched the Solar Training Network. This was a national initiative designed to bridge gaps and strengthen coordination among solar industry employers and training providers in order to support a well-qualified, diverse, and job-ready solar workforce. Next slide, please. Okay, so a bit more on the Solar Training Network. This program prioritized stakeholder engagement efforts and produced original research and resources in order to articulate the processes and the challenges surrounding solar industry workforce development. So this program led efforts to identify and address information gaps related to evolving workforce needs, integrate solar career pathways into the broader public workforce development system, and expand solar work-based learning opportunities. So two key outcomes from this project were the 2017 Solar Training and Hiring Insights Report and the 2018 Workforce Development Toolkit. So each of these, as well as like case studies and other resources, are available on our website at americansolarworkforce.org. And I'm not going to get too far into each of these, but just wanted to highlight a few kind of key takeaways. Next slide, please. So the Training and Hiring Insights Report, this explores the workforce challenges presented by rapid industry growth and outlines the business case for investment in work-based learning. So these numbers on here are maybe a little bit outdated at this point, but the overall trends hold and are likely even more true now. So this report emphasizes the importance of practical experience, particularly for the installation sector, and explores the relative value of industry certification as workforce demand varies by region. Hiring challenges are expensive and they limit a company's capacity for growth. And so it follows that companies who invest early in training have lower overall labor costs. So this trend line shows the cost of labor per kilowatt hour for time spent on dedicated onboarding training. And the three data points here represent the three largest solar employers in the US, which I won't name here, but you can probably guess who those might be. And we recognize that smaller companies don't necessarily have capacity to design or implement comprehensive onboarding training, but there are collaborative regional solutions to ensure strong talent pipelines are developed and maintained in ways that are responsive to or informed by regional industry needs. Next slide, please. So the Solar Industry Workforce Development Toolkit addresses some of the information gaps that were identified by the Training and Hiring Insights Report. this is centered around themes of workforce development and work-based learning, and really situates solar training and hiring challenges within a much broader context of the public workforce development system. So the first half covers how public resources and networks can expand solar recruitment efforts, and how solar employers can leverage labor market data to engage workforce boards and access services at local and state levels. The second half is all about work-based learning and steps that employers can take to overcome real or sometimes just perceived challenges to implement on-the-job training. So each section is illustrated by case studies and best practices and templated action plans and implementation guides for employers and training providers to kind of put these ideas into practice and work together to define actionable and collaborative solutions for the industry to better align education with evolving workforce needs. Next slide, please. Okay, so we currently have funding from Department of Energy to run a second iteration of Solar Ready Vets. And this is designed to draw from and expand on some of these past efforts in order to connect veterans with opportunities in solar, and to support the industry's ability to really invest in military talent as part of this broader workforce development strategy. Military service members offer really strong organizational and leadership and critical thinking skills and technical aptitudes, as well as this mission-driven work ethic, which makes them really well positioned to excel in a wide range of solar careers. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this program is designed around kind of a two-track approach. We're running a Solar Ready Vets Fellowship through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation's Hiring Our Heroes program. This is geared toward mid to senior level service members and supports a smooth transition from active duty into leadership roles in solar. The other half of our work entails several capacity building initiatives that engage solar employers and training providers and regional workforce development networks to support military service members and vets pursuing solar careers. So for example, our team has secured GI Bill eligibility for all of NABSEP's solar certifications, which Eric will share more about in a few minutes. And we're rolling out fast tracks to NABSEP certification that recognize and leverage relevant military experience and skills. We're also establishing some strategic targeted partnerships to improve alignment between training and workforce needs and strengthen train to hire pipelines in high demand markets. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so I just wanted to quickly highlight for you a couple of our key activities related to training. We're convening regional partnerships between community college training providers and solar employers in order to improve solar training and hiring outcomes. So we're launching 10 of these partnerships in high demand regions across the country. And these are intended to be inspired by kind of this overarching objective of employer-led investment in training and carried out in ways that benefit both sides. So each of these partnerships is unique and set up in a way that's responsive to training needs and workforce demand. And these entail different kinds of engagement by employers, such as guest speaking and site visits and informational interviews, resume reviews for graduates, internship programs, equipment donations for training, and things like that. So we've got a few of these up and running. We're looking to engage additional partners, so please feel free to reach out if your organization might be interested in learning about this opportunity. I'm definitely interested in hearing from you. I think we're looking to do about 5 or 6 more over the next year or so, and we're actively engaging new partners. I think we have one more slide, or a couple more. Oh, okay. Yeah, so we're also working on establishing a registered apprenticeship program for solar. This will go a long way toward formalizing and standardizing work-based learning in solar, and also opens up some valuable incentives for both vets and employers. So we worked with Urban Institute to develop an installer apprenticeship framework, which is currently pending approval at DOL. We're actively working with some key stakeholders to identify and pursue opportunities. So stay tuned here. We should have more to share on that front in the next few months. Next slide, please. Oh, okay. So I just wanted to include a couple of resources that might be of interest to this audience. Many of you have likely seen this, but the Interstate Renewable Energy Council has a really awesome solar career development tool. They have this interactive solar career pathways map that illustrates about 40 different solar jobs over 4 general categories with like 60 something distinct potential routes of advancement that an individual could take over the course of their solar career. So you can click into each point on this grid and it displays information about that particular job, like the experience needed, the relevant skill sets, typical pay and avenues for advancement from that point. And so this tool is really valuable for helping students to understand all the ways that someone can take an entry-level solar job and turn it into a pretty powerful career. It's important to keep in mind that these routes and the data behind the map aren't set in stone, but it's reflective of like what you can typically plan for. The industry is evolving quickly and regional solar markets are all different, but this is a great, starting point for exploring possibilities. The other flowchart is a resource that was developed by A&R Solar, which is an installation firm in the Pacific Northwest. This is meant to help students and early career job seekers kind of narrow down what kind of solar job might be the best fit, depending on particular strengths and interests and how you feel about travel and heights and math and multitasking and things like that. So like, let's say you're good with heights, you love to travel, you're a strong multitasker, but you're not really into heavy equipment, like you could be a great project manager. Or maybe if heights aren't your thing, but you love math and blueprints, then system design and engineering might be a better path for you. So this might be a little small to read on here, realizing that now, but it's just kind of a fun way to communicate the idea that solar is a really expansive and all-encompassing industry. And there's a solar job out there for anyone who wants to be involved. So both of these resources and a few others are available on our career resources page on our program website. So definitely encourage everyone to check that out. And I just included this slide just to kind of reiterate that the full picture of like what a solar job can look like goes so far beyond like the general perception of hard hats on a roof. So high quality installation jobs are so important, but there's also a great need for like electricians and engineers, and as well as like administrative and management kinds of roles that steer and support quickly growing companies. We need educators and instructors to provide quality training, and just so much more. And solar is a really dynamic industry, like from innovations in technology to evolving market and policy landscapes. Like solar has a really key role to play in the transition to a renewable energy economy. And so just raising visibility and awareness of opportunities in solar is really key to make sure that we have a strong workforce that can meet this growing demand. So I think that's all I had. So I guess I'll turn this over to Eric now.
Thank you, Megan. And again, thank you to Ken and Gabrielle for having us. So yes, I am Eric Filate. I am with the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners, also known as NABSEP. If you have done any research into kind of training or credentialing as far as solar and renewable energies are concerned, you would see that NABSEP is considered to be the gold standard. We have been for over a decade now, since 2003. We've launched 8 board certification programs and 3 associate credential programs, which you're about to hear about in the next slide. Our 4 primary goals, as you see on the bottom, are to promote renewable energy, provide value to practitioners, promote worker safety and skill concepts, and promote consumer confidence. And we feel that the extensive time that we've been engaged in this industry and the amount, the network that we built of qualified, highly qualified and highly trained installers, and the other roles that Megan touched on come from the valuable resources that can be found carried through our training providers from the NABSEP job task analysis, which we will also get into further along in the presentation. Next slide, please. So we like to show this a lot, not only for its aesthetic value, but also because it really gives a great picture as far as what you can do with a NABSEP board certification. So starting in the center of the picture with our associate credential, again, that's kind of considered our foundational building block. It is at this time our currently most sought after credential, and it's extremely valuable. Not necessarily in the sense for getting an entry-level job in the solar industry, but it is essential in terms of if you want to bolster your career or further advance your career in the solar industry. The PBA really dips your toe into the water and allows you to get an extensive preview of what our board certifications look like. So we have two installer certifications, most commonly our PVIP, that's our PV Installation Professional, which you can see at the bottom right. As Megan alluded to earlier, the field of technical sales is growing, so we have our PVTS, that's in the bottom left corner. And this picture not only gives you an idea of the types of jobs that you could get after pursuing each of these certifications, but also just an overall concept of the learning concepts and knowledge tasks that you would be required to master and really gain a strong sense of familiarity with when advancing your career in the solar industry, which we feel our NABSEP board certifications are excellent in doing. Next slide, please. So the value of our board certifications in the solar industry. So, as I mentioned, we are often considered to be the gold standard, or our certifications are rather, in terms of the benefits overall for customers and consumers. Solar can be a very challenging process, and it really helps when you have installers, when you have, sales representatives, when you have people who kind of carry out the process and give you information about the process, when they are trained and when they have that, when they have those qualifications to demonstrate their professional capacity. Again, you can be sure that as a customer, your experience will be a lot higher than somebody who is not NABSEP certified. Again, with the concept of the job getting it done right the first time, or at least as often as possible. That will lower your overall installation costs. And again, when you're dealing with professionals, you can be sure that not only can you as a customer be inclined to hold them accountable, but they themselves and their employers will be held accountable, certainly. For employers in our industry, we're going to get to a little later on in the presentation why or statistics that prove employers value our board certifications. But yes, when people, if you go to Indeed.com, just for example, and you type in, just any job for solar, you will often see NABSEP certifications sought after, or NABSEP certification required. That is because, with that certification, again, it is a reliable predictor of employee success. It is proof that candidates possess the knowledge and the skills concepts to get the job done right. And employers can be sure that when they are hiring somebody who is NABSEP certified, that they have the verified proof that they have had the extensive training, the extensive career to really make sure that this job gets done accurately and correctly the first time. Next slide, please. So as Megan touched on, we are one of the project partners in terms of the DOE grant that we're rolling out for the Solar Ready Vets Network. I believe it's officially called the NSJ, the National Solar Jobs Accelerator, but we call it, Solar Ready Vets Network. And NABSEP is involved in several parts of this. The two most relevant to this presentation are our board certifications and our associate credential are available for GI Bill reimbursement benefits. So if you are a veteran and you have either completed your training, or if you've been discharged, but in an honorable fashion, we have two. So basically, If you want to just take the exam and get reimbursed for the exam, that application is available on our website. But what we're trying to do, and this is with the assistance of our registered training providers, we are trying to get them those training institutions and their solar courses registered with the Veterans Affairs database. That will allow the full process, not only the payment, the reimbursement benefit for the exam, but for the course itself, that will be carried out through the NABSEP registered training provider. We have a group of subject matter experts with not only extensive experience in the solar industry, but also extensive military experience. And that group of 20 or so individuals has helped us with the assistance of creating fast tracks for veterans who are pursuing NABSEP board certifications. And I'll get on specifically what that means a little later on in the presentation, but it is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. And the COOL program. So a lot of our veterans, or at least our military personnel here, will be familiar with the COOL program. It stands for Credentialing Online Opportunity Learning. And not only do COOL programs have the ability to pay for certifications and license exams for eligible service members, they can take the training and the exam while still on base. Our PVA and our PVIP, which again are our most commonly sought after certifications and credentials, they are now available for military personnel who are still on base and want to take the exam on base. So we feel that's a very strong initiative. Next slide, please. So again, just to reiterate, this was last year. We contacted the Department of Veterans and we wanted to, complete the process of getting our board certifications registered with the VA database. And again, this process will not only allow a veteran or a transitioning military personnel member to get reimbursed not only for the exam of one of these associate credentials or board certifications that you see listed below, but the cost as well if it's completed through a registered training provider that is registered and also has their solar course registered with the VA database. So as you can see, our PVA, our PVIP, are two most commonly sought after certifications, as well as design specialist, technical sales. These are all registered within the VA database for GI Bill reimbursement. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, this is just a little bit more into, again, not just getting the exam covered, but also how we are getting our training providers to be able to cover the whole cost of, of getting training and the courses that lead to NABSEP board certification exam. So the first bullet says, and this is very true in my experience in talking with veterans over the last year or so. Again, it is important to cover the cost of the exam, but paying for training out of pocket is a very difficult burden for a large share of veterans. So again, the Veterans Affairs database, and Ken mentioned that this presentation will be made available for download. So if you download the presentation, you can click the links here that I provided. You can search for your institution using the link inquiry.vba.va.gov. If you do not see an entry for your training institution is not registered, and you should contact your state approving agency representative to get your training institution registered. That is often the first step in the process. The second step in the process, if you see your institution, but not your solar training program registered, or the, part of the overall program or the degree that leads to training in the NABSEP board certification, again, contacting your state approving agency representative, and you can see the link below. And oftentimes we say to, contact either a program representative or some kind of administrative assistant first. That will often they're often the first line of response for getting your program registered. But as long as your program meets all the requirements, you will be sent an application and you can fill it out and send it to your state approving agency representative to get your solar program registered with the VA database. And also, if you go to our website, we have a list of tips that you can kind of convey to your state approving agency to kind of explain that this is a training program for veterans, and it's so they receive a job upon completion of the course and the exam. Again, emphasizing that importance that this leads to a job for a veteran, because that is, what the VA wants to do. The VA wants to pursue programs that gives veterans broader access to jobs. And, we feel that the solar industry can do that, especially with our board certifications. Next slide, please. So, excuse me, I apologize. So now we're going to discuss the fast tracks, which are in the process of not only being created, but also being laid out for, proper use. So what are the fast tracks? As I mentioned, we're very fortunate at NABSEP. We have an extensive network of people in the solar industry, either people who own their own businesses who are veterans, such as Everblue Training in North Carolina, or just representatives who have been in the solar industry, again, for decades, and have that experience to testify, not only through the completion of their MOS courses during their military training, but also through their experience in building their own career within the solar industry. We wanted to basically provide at NABSEP a way to honor veterans' military experience and their extensive and rigorous training through their MOS courses, and use that as a building block to give them a path that is truncated, so that they can earn their board certifications at a quicker pace than a normal candidate that is not a veteran. So the fast tracks will be able to be utilized when NABSEP launches our new certification management platform. At this time, the date for launch is May 1st. And again, while we do want to give veterans an accelerated pathway to earn the board certifications, we do not want to denigrate or kind of give the wrong impression that we're lowering the experience or lowering the threshold, so to speak, to earn board certification. So veterans will still have to demonstrate their capacity for understanding the critical knowledge concepts found in NABSEP's job task analysis for each certification, which you can find on our website, nabsep.org. And depending on which fast track path they choose, vets will have to either verify their experience through a military supervisor or a current PV employer. So please stay tuned. We will be making several announcements, not only when our new certification management platform goes live, but also for these fast tracks that we believe will make a critical difference for a lot of veterans pursuing solar certification. Next slide, please. Yes, so one thing that we often want to do, especially with this grant, with the Solar Ready Vets Network and building our capacity initiatives, what we want to do is raise awareness so that students who are veterans who either attend these training centers, whether it's at a local community college, can understand that these options are available to them, because that is one of the barriers that we have heard about and that we have experienced personally, that veterans, there is a little bit of a skeptical approach when it comes to solar and the renewable energies field in general. As Megan alluded to earlier in the presentation, that may stem from this perception of helmets on a hard hats, working on a roof type of thing. And we want to, and especially we want our training institutions to convey the important message that it's not just installation jobs. Again, technical sales, system design, commissioning, maintenance, and service roles, these are all expanding all throughout the country, not just in what we call traditional solar markets, such as California and the Pacific Northwest. We are seeing growth in places in the Southeast. We are seeing growth in places like Texas and Arizona. So again, we do encourage that diversity of jobs available to be explained to veteran candidates. And also, veterans may not understand the, again, just to reiterate, our PVA, which is kind of the foundational building block, it's our associate credential. While it's not necessary to get an entry-level job in solar, if you want to advance your career, our board certifications in solar will do that. And not only will they do that, they will oftentimes lead to an average salary increase of $11,000. As I mentioned, 26% of NABSEP board certified NABSEP board certified professionals end up starting their own solar businesses. We have a couple on our veterans committee, and 60% of engineering, procurement, construction, EPCs, consider NABSEP's board certifications to be either essential or very important when hiring. Also, another statistic that I have here that I'd like to share, 75% of the people polled on Indeed.com said earning their NABSEP, 75% of solar employees who found a job in the solar industry through Indeed said earning their NABSEP PVIP, the installation professional, helped them get a job in this industry. And again, also we would like to point to a lot of the community colleges we work with, for example, and a lot of institutions in general that are colleges. They have Veterans Resource centers, they have Veterans Services offices that are located on campus. So getting in touch with these individuals and highlighting the components of solar as an alternative path for veterans to pursue in terms of building a career, we encourage that strongly. We've also done some work with the Student Veterans of America. They have over 1,200 chapters, if I'm not mistaken. So the link in the presentation, we encourage you to reach out to them and see if a chapter can gain some insight knowledge on the possibility of solar and that opportunity be extended to veterans. Next slide, please. So I'll just say this is our Solar Ready Vets Network slide. As Megan alluded to, we have a bunch of different initiatives, not only through NABSEP, but also offered through our project partners in Hiring Our Heroes, which is a foundation of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, SIA, another organization that I feel a lot of people are familiar with, the Solar Energy Industries Association. They assist with fellowships and curriculum development. We have a whole host of career fairs that we do throughout the year. The one coming up is on April 8th. Please check out the website that you see at the bottom, or you can go to solarreadyveterans.org to register for that event. It's going to be a very exciting opportunity with a lot of employers present. And again, we encourage you to join the Solar Ready Vets Network. We encourage you to see about all the events and all the stuff that not only NABSEP is doing, but our project partners and the other types of education and employment opportunities in solar that are available. And Megan can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the last slide of our presentation.
Yep, that's it.
Thank you, Eric and Megan, for sharing all that information with us. As both of you did a great job on those presentations. We have a few questions that have come across the chat, and I've got a couple others here that were sent to me. Let me start with. Are there certain branches of service or certain types of armed forces career paths or certain skill sets that translate best to the solar sector?
So I can go ahead and start on that one. Excuse me. We often find that, again, through what I mentioned, the MOS courses, which again are the courses that military members take while on base, we find that the ones that often translate the most are stuff like engineering, roofing, construction, electrical work. We have a member. We have one of the regional partnerships that we've developed with Houston Community College. The professor who runs the solar program there, he is a former electronics radar tech from his time in the Army, and he found a seamless transition into kind of mastering the concepts of solar. So that is what I've come across personally. But yeah, we also find that there are a lot of different connections that can be made, especially with the increased use of technology. And we want to start to pluck people who may have studied IT, other technological avenues we feel that can translate really well to solar, especially with the increasingly diverse amount of jobs available in the industry.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I would just add to that the industry in general is interested in recruiting military talent, not just for their technical skills, but for their teamwork and leadership are really, really valuable in this kind of field. And so people who can work together to get the job done, anyone who's even familiar with tools, like a lot of companies will train just because there's such a high demand for talent. And so, anyone who's interested in learning and has, like Eric said, a background in electrical or construction would be really well suited to, get started in the industry. And even if you start out in an entry-level job, kind of learning the ropes with a company, like if you just put in a little bit of work and keep learning, you can move up within the industry really quickly.
Yeah, when I first read that question, the first thing that came to my mind was the Army Corps of Engineers would be a good talent pipeline. But I'd also second Eric's point about IT and communications being key pieces in the industry right now, in areas that are seeing a lot of growth with sort of smart inverter technology and communicating with the utility in an interactive way. I think that's going to be an area for a lot of growth, and we actually have a small grant looking at those sorts of control technologies. So I think there is definitely a lot of different routes to get into the industry right now, as you indicate. Megan, sort of keeping on that same sort of theme, you had mentioned the solar career map and shared the figure there, and we put the link for it in the chat for people that want to consult that document. Sort of a question related to that: if vets enter into the solar workforce as technicians, what other career options might be available as they advance in their career? And could you maybe provide an example or an illustration of what a typical path might look like?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. So I don't have that career map in front of me right now, but if we're talking about veterans specifically, if you go on the IREC website and look at the career map, there is a veteran specific tab up in the upper right-hand corner that just basically like recreates that same career map, but takes into consideration military experience. And I think they used like the MOS codes that Eric was talking about to develop, that was part of the data that they used to develop that resource. And so
that's excellent. I think that's a new feature that was added to that career map in the third generation. And boy, that's quite the enhancement to that tool. I'll maybe give a plug. Create actually did a webinar not too long ago with Joe Sarubi from IREC on using career maps as an educational tool with students. And I'd encourage anybody that's interested to check out that career map webinar as well on the Create website, and definitely take a look at that tool. I'm gonna move ahead here. As you both know, the U.S. Armed Forces have a really broad geographic reach worldwide. Does the Solar Ready Vets program serve vets that might be living abroad as expatriates or in U.S. territories? And what kind of initiatives might help promote solar at U.S. facilities or locations outside the mainland 48 states?
So that's a great question. So yeah, it's a national scope. We recognize a lot of service members are, outside the country. And so we would really recommend that anybody who's, currently serving in the military and interested in, looking into solar opportunities as you're transitioning, to just join the Solar Ready Vets network. That's how you can, stay current on all of the different kinds of opportunities and resources that our program is putting out. We have a lot of different kinds of like career development and networking events that are all virtual right now, thanks to COVID, which is, unfortunate that we have to do everything virtually, but it does create an opportunity for anyone in the world to participate. And so, yeah, like Eric mentioned, we've got a career fair coming up that will be virtual. So, anyone with access to, an internet connection can participate in that if they're a veteran. So that would be, I guess, your first place to start. And then there's resources on our website about how to find training, both in-person training and online training that you can use your GI Bill benefits for. And so there's tons of opportunities, even if you're not located in the US, to kind of get started on your solar career path.
Eric, here's a question for you. Can you describe what the process is to earn the NABSEP PV Associate credential, and how does the testing for the NABSEP PV Associate work?
Yes. So Ken, just before I answer that, because I tried to answer the question that you posed to Megan before, there's a link to our course catalog further up in the chat. So coursecatalog.nabsep.org. If you are looking for NABSEP training and you live outside the U.S., you can either take the training with an online provider. We have a lot of online providers, and also We are working to expand our presence in areas like Puerto Rico. We're in the midst of working on a deal with a certain country in Europe that I won't mention, think Northern Europe. So we are trying to expand our presence for our training networks so that one could take it on campus. But for right now, I would encourage you to go to coursecatalog.nabsep.org. The link is in the chat, and search for online providers in the meantime. Ken, I'm so sorry. Your question one more time was the two pathways towards the PBA. Is that right?
Yeah, but I'm glad you added in the information about the international locations too. I know we actually have a fair number of folks in the CREATE network in the Caribbean region, so that the Puerto Rico connection I think will be helpful to some.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so the question I was going to ask you is, can you just sort of describe the process to earn the PBA credential, and how does the testing for the NABSEP credential work?
Okay, thank you for that question. So there are two pathways to earn the PBA. We call one the education pathway and the experience pathway. The education pathway would involve taking our course, taking the PBA course with a registered training provider. Again, if you go to that website, coursecatalog.nabsep.org, and you click here for associate exams, you can get that list of our associate providers. Our associate providers are our registered training providers who exclusively deal with the photovoltaic associate, the PBA credential. So you can either take a course and an exam with them, one of our training providers, or you can do the experience pathway. The experience pathway is demonstrating that you have worked in a PV, a solar employer, for at least a period of 6 months, and you can prove that you have demonstrated kind of the knowledge tasks that we elaborate on in the job task analysis. You can qualify the exam with a note from your supervisor, kind of verifying that you've worked at that place for 6 months and you're ready to take the exam. So you can qualify for the exam that way as well. So the education pathway through an associate training provider, the experience pathway through working for an employer for 6 months, and then you will be led to an exam. Again, with COVID, most likely your exam will be administered online through Scantron. But yes, certain states, as more states open up, there will be more in-person opportunities for you to take the exam in person as well.
And Eric, I'm going to add the question that I'm sure is in many people's heads. If they don't pass the exam the first time, what happens?
Yes, so they would have to take the course. They would have to take the exam again. I apologize for because I believe they wouldn't have to take the course over exam, the course over again, just the exam. And I believe they would have to pay, unless they had some kind of like medical experience, they would have to pay again for the exam.
But you get second chance.
Yes, yeah, we do offer second chances, third chances.
Wonderful, wonderful. We're almost at the end of our time, so I've just got one more question here. You spoke a little bit about this earlier here, Eric. Many of our viewers on the call are going to be from educational institutions, and I'm sure one of the first things they're going to do after watching this webinar is to check and see if their school is registered in the VA database, and see if their program is listed with their state SAA. Once they've done that, what are some of the next actions that they could take to promote solar opportunities to prospective veterans? And I'll let each of you take a chance at trying to answer that.
Yes, absolutely. So the individual who asked that, I asked that they email me. I'm gonna give them a link to a PDF that kind of explains that process of finding out if your training institution is registered with the VA database, and B, how to which representative to contact to ask for an application to either register your institution or your solar course. So that will be made available very shortly, and anybody who emails me, I posted my email in the chat. So Ken, your next question of taking what we've done and kind of getting the next path and getting veterans to the actual training. We host a lot of webinars. We do a lot of social media outreach. We do a lot of extensive, email network communications. Unfortunately, our in-person outreach has been limited, obviously. We just, from personal experience, we had a Veterans Appreciation webinar session at the last NABSEP conference that we had back in September. It was virtual. We still had, I believe between 30 or 40 individuals show up who are, attending our conference. So we do feel that we get the message out very as extensively as we can. Obviously, with our limitations, we're going to work around those, and we're going to develop more solutions to, get our message across to a broader network. But yes, we do plan on stepping it up a gear over the next year or two as our project continues, and doing that more work to get veterans to the training providers, to get more familiar and acclimated with the training and credentialing process.
Thank you. Megan, final thoughts?
Oh, sure. I mean, that's a great question in terms of getting, from a training provider perspective, getting veterans into your program and into the solar workforce. I think Eric kind of alluded to this, but just like raising visibility of solar as an opportunity for not just a job, but for a career. And so part of that is like making sure that you're in coordination with, a lot of schools have like a veterans affairs or veterans career counselor on campus. And so making sure that that person is, excited about solar, that goes a long way to reaching those folks. There are, career offices on military bases. If your school is in close proximity to a military base, definitely just checking in there and letting them know about your training program, making sure that your training program is eligible for these education benefits, those kinds of things. And also being more plugged into the industry in your immediate area. If there's an employer that you can maybe form a partnership with to hire your graduates and get them to really invest in your training program, that goes a long way toward getting people excited about solar careers, and just making those opportunities really visible and compelling to veterans who have, a lot of opportunities. They could go into any industry. And so it's like, how do we tell a story about how solar is a great career pathway is, something that our program tries to do, and we really encourage training providers to, spend time thinking about that. So if there are any other questions, or, this has been a really great conversation. So thank you, Ken and Gabby and the Create Network, and thanks to, everyone here for joining us this afternoon.
Yeah, it has been great, and we're just about the end of our time. So let me just say, Megan and Eric, thank you so much for taking the time to present to our Create audience today. We obviously really appreciate the work that both the Solar Foundation and NABSEP are doing to support the Solar Ready Vets Network. And hopefully, for the folks viewing the presentation with us here today, and those that are viewing the recording online, this information hopefully helps to get a few more vets into our solar workforce, and we'll all look forward to working together to meet that challenge. So with that said, I'd like to just wish everybody a good afternoon, and hope that some of you tune in with us on future webinar events that will be posted on the Create website, which is createenergy.org. Thanks once again, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.